حسنة اللهم اجعل أعمالنا خالصة لوجهك ولا تجعل فيها حظا لغيرك وصل اللهم على سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله
وبركاته.
الحمد لله. In our last lesson, we looked at did we look at we looked at hadith number 24, not 25, correct?
Yes,
25. Oh, okay. Let me just see. Okay, can the online people, can you see my my screen?
Yes, we can see you, Sheikh.
Me or
Just
my
screen, Maulana. Not the screen, Maulana.
Okay.
I think some of us can see the screen and hear.
You can see the screen in here. Let me just see if I can share it again. Okay, let's look at hadith number 26. So when Yahya would have looked at the hadith on ذهب أهل الدثور بالأجور, the hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam recommends to, make those adhkar, right? So now we move on to hadith number 26. I don't know how I'm going to share this with you guys in the class because of the projectors, but we'll read the hadith inshallah. You can just Google hadith 26 of Imam Nawawis 40. You might get it. But don't, it's not necessary that you have it in front of you either. So, عن أبي هريرة رضي الله تعالى عنه قال, the Sahabi Abu Hurairah رضي الله عنه, he said, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, that the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, كل سلامة من الناس عليه صدقة كل يوم تطلع فيه الشمس. Or you can just read كل سلامة من الناس عليه صدقة as a first sentence. Right. So what does the hadith say? كل سلامة من الناس. Every single joint of a person, of mankind, عليه صدقة, upon it is a sadaqah. Meaning that every joint in a person's body has a sadaqah that it must pay. كل يوم تطلع فيه الشمس. When does it have that sadaqah upon it? كل يوم, every day, تطلع فيه الشمس, in which the sun rises. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying, according to Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, and this is a strong hadith that's muttafaqun alayh, Bukhari and Muslim narrated. Right? He says that every day in which the sun rises, there is a sadaqah that every joint in your body is liable to pay. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam goes on to explain how is it that we actually go about paying these sadaqat. So he says, and when we say alayhi sadaqatun, upon it is a sadaqah or against it is a sadaqah, we don't mean, it's not in the sense here of it being fard. Right? It's in the sense of it being mandoob to do these things, mustahab, recommended to do these things. If it was such a thing that was compulsory, then obviously the ruling would have been clear-cut in relation to it. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is telling this to us as an encouragement to do good, saying that every joint in our body has a sadaqah that it must pay. So he gives us examples of that. He says, تعدل بين اثنين صدقة. تعدل بين اثنين. بين اثنين. To do justice between اثنين, between two, meaning between two people, صدقة, that is a charity. That's a charity, right? What does it mean to do justice between two people? To solve the issue, to reconcile between. And it's important to understand it like that, yeah. Because the first option is the first option is that every person gets their haqq. If one person took the haqq from another person, every person gets their haqq. But if that cannot be attained, that doesn't mean reconciliation cannot be attained. I think it ties into what we were speaking about last week of forgiveness. Right? You can have people, justice is achieved in the Islamic mind through rahmah as well. Right? If a person waives their right, if a person waives their right, you've also made a adl between them. If these two, one person took the right of another person, he is unable at this point in time to give that right back fully. And you encourage the person, the victim, you tell him, look, this person is remorseful and they are, they won't do the same thing, and it will be good to forgive them and forgo your right. And if the person accedes to that, then you would have done adl between them as well. Right? And that's very important in the Muslim mind. Because, okay, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but we live in a world so fixated on justice at times that it forgets the virtue of mercy. Right? We live in a world so fixated with justice that we forget the virtue of mercy. And in the Muslim mind, in our hierarchy of values, mercy actually trumps justice. Right? And this is taught to us by the Quran in numerous places and the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When Allah speaks about His mercy and His forgiveness, He's attributed to Himself. When He speaks about His ghadab, then He otherizes it. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or even in the hadith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna rahmati sabaqat ghadabi. My rahmah precedes my anger. So that's important. That adl can be done by giving each person their right, and that's first prize. But if it can't be attained, to encourage them to just reconcile in a manner that one waives their right. كل يوم تعدل بين الاثنين صدقة وتعين الرجل في دابته فتحمله عليها وتعين الرجل أعان يعين. We know this, the root is عون, عين واو نون, means to help. We use it oftentimes on the 10th verb, isti'ana, إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين, to seek help. On the 4th verb here, it means to help somebody else. وتعين الرجل, to assist a person, a man, في دابته, in relation to his animal. Right? فتحمله عليها, then you carry him upon it, meaning you assist the person to mount his animal. أو ترفع له عليها متاعه, or ترفع له, you raise for him عليها, onto his mount, متاعه, his stuff, his goods. Meaning either you just helping the person get onto their ride, or maybe they're on their ride, they're helping them get their goods on that sadaqah. That's a charity. I mean, in our time, maybe opening the door for somebody, helping somebody unpack the groceries, pack it into the car for them, whatever the case may be, that's all sadaqah. Obviously must be done with wisdom. No? Nowadays you go help somebody pack this stuff and you think you want to run away with it. Excuse me? Yeah, and open the door, of course. Yes. Right? But Rasul is telling us what simple things fulfill all of those sadaqat of our limbs. Right? And obviously all of these actions are actions that engage much of our bodies. So Rasul says, وَتُعِينُ الرَّجُلَ فِي دَابَتِهِ فَتَحْمِلُهُ عَلَيْهَا, helping a man onto his onto his ride, or even just raising or lifting his goods onto his ride for him, sadaqah, that is a charity. وَالْكَلِمَةُ الطَّيِّبَةُ صَدَقَةٌ. A good word is a charity. وَبِكُلِّ خُطْوَةٍ تَمْشِيهَا إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ صَدَقَةٌ. And every footstep that you walk with towards salah, that is a charity. وَتُمِيطُ الْأَذَى عَنِ الطَّرِيقِ صَدَقَةٌ. تُمِيطُ إِمَاطَةُ الْأَذَى, to remove harm. So, وَتُمِيطُ الْأَذَى, removing harm عَنِ الطَّرِيقِ, from a path, that is also a charity. In another narration, similar narration, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam speaks about having, a charity due upon every limb, and then he says that if you perform 2 rak'at, then it suffices for all of them at the time of duha, salatul duha. So, not to take away from the meaning of this hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is again encouraging us to look for every type of good deed to fulfill the charities that are due against our limbs. That's in other places, in other earlier hadith that we did in this compilation, there were hadith that spoke about, doing kathratu turuq al-khair, like the abundant pathways there are to doing good, smiling at your brother's good, all of those things. Yeah, it's going one step further. It's looking out for good to do and recognizing that there's many ways to do good, but not simply as an act of kindness to another person, but as an act of shukr for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him. Right? Allah has given me this body with all of its limbs, etc., etc., etc. I recognize that as part of my shukr, I must use it for good. That's why there's a charity due upon every limb of my body. And then we go about doing all of these things. And again, if you look at it, some of the things that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned are actions connected to ritual acts of worship, and others are connected to interactions with people. Right? So all of that is considered under the ambit of sadaqah in one form or another. You may think to yourself, how is my footstep towards the salah charity? Look, I mean, the hadith is giving us some examples of broader things. So certainly towards the mosque, that is a charity. But the hadith doesn't specify to that. If I'm walking to perform salah in jama'ah in my home also, right? There'll be a variety of interpretations because there's other hadith that speak specifically of a virtue for going to the jama'ah. But a jama'ah can be had elsewhere as well. A mother with their children, a husband with his wife, those are all jama'ah. Obviously, first place goes to the masjid. But even just walking you may think to yourself, how is that a charity? Well, if you have the understanding of it being walking to the congregational prayer, then in congregation, everybody multiplies the rewards of each other. Right? So, and I think that is the general understanding of this. A jama'ah, whether it be in a masjid or elsewhere, but in me going to perform salah in jama'ah with another person, I attain for them the reward of jama'ah as well as for myself. So it's like there's a sadaqah in it. And it's easy, I mean, like, in the Shafi madhab, the rulings around this is very, easy. If somebody else is performing their fard, and you've already performed your fard, you can perform with him in jama'ah, with the niyyah for sunnah. As long as the one leading is praying lesser rak'at than the one following. That's all. Doesn't matter. So that they can get jama'ah. But you will also get the reward of jama'ah for the sunnah. Some sunan jama'ah is recommended in, some sunan is not recommended. Right? For example, tahajjud salah, better to pray alone. Witr salah, generally better to pray alone, except in the second half of Ramadan. Actually, except in Ramadan in its entirety. So there's certain that are recommended to be done alone, certain that are recommended to be done in community and in jama'ah. But what I'm saying is that when somebody else, when in performing with them, you allow them to attain the fadila of jama'ah, then it's a charity. It doesn't matter who's leading and who's following. The imam can have the intention of sunnah, and the one following can have the intention of fard. The imam can have the intention of fard, and the one following can have the intention of sunnah. It doesn't matter.
So, say for example, you relate to the
Yes.
you want to make the part, so you just don't
Yes. Yes, you can do that. Exactly. Look, he may be performing 2 rakat and you need to perform 2 rakat. So you just carry on when he's done. Yeah, that's perfectly fine in the Shafi manner. Yes, yes. Yeah, any salah. If he's making asr, you making dhuhr, then it's fine. Yes. Yes, yes. In the Shafi madhab, it's so easy, right? I'm not like promoting the Shafi madhab here. I'm just saying the rulings in relation to this are so easy. Even if the person doesn't have the intention of being the imam, like you tap him and he still carries on softly, right? You can also still follow him with the intention of following. Even if he doesn't have the intention of imam, you can still have the intention of iqtida, following. Yeah. Yes. You just follow it. Yeah, you just follow it. Doesn't matter. Yeah. The only thing is that they mustn't be paying more rakat. Otherwise, you're going to have to break away from them. Like you can't, just because the imam is praying 4 rakat, you can't now make your maghrib 4 rakat. No, it has to be there. And that's why usually when there's a traveler in a masjid, like if there's a traveling scholar, and he's going to make qasr salah, then they let him be the imam. And then everybody else will stand and pray the extra 2 afterwards. Yeah. But I mean, that's slightly tangential to the hadith, but it's good to know as well. The idea of performing jama'ah salah as a sadaqah. And why I mention that is because males should be going to masjid, should try their best to go to the masjid as often as possible, right? But that doesn't mean your wife must be deprived of jama'ah. That doesn't mean your wife must be deprived of performing salah and jama'ah. So you can return home and then make your sunnahs, and she follows you with the niyyah of fard, and then both she gets jama'ah as well. Right? So I think we stop at that with the hadith for today, and we continue with some nahu bidillah. Not a hard concept today again. I think Sister Celine would have just sent you now a PDF of